It's Seeing Red, the New York Soccer Roundup. Since 2010, your weekly source for independent New York Red Bulls news and opinion. Now, from the Joe Goldstein Studio, here's your host, Mark Fishkin.
We are back. It is the end of the season. The season has mercifully come to an end. And with that, with Michael Batista, with Daniel Rebane, the grades are in. We're not really going to be talking about the Red Bulls 3-1 loss on decision day. Somewhat of a foregone conclusion. John McCarthy not exactly covering himself in glory, but that's beside the point because tonight is all about how the Red Bulls measured up in 2025. It was great to see both of my Seeing Red co-hosts here at Montclair State University on Sunday night as Red Bulls 2 took the Carolina Core to the woodshed. And so we're still waiting to hear when the conference semifinals of MLS Next Pro will happen, but it will be at home and it will be this weekend. We just don't know exactly when. Boys, say hello. Daniel, what's going on? What's in your world right now?
Hello, everybody. And yes, we did have a great time at MSU Soccer Park on Sunday. I mean, we actually saw a really good soccer team in person. No shade to the first team, but, that's just what it is. The second team's been a much better team this year, and they showed why. So I had fun there. I've been covering college hockey as well, so have been fun over at West Point as well. So I'm glad to be talking season grades and wrapping up the season with you guys here.
Awesome. Mr. B?
Yeah, what Dan said. It's been a season. I'm happy it's over. Red Bulls 2 was a very fun game. It's been months since I've seen a Red Bull team score that many goals in a single game. A lot of good prospects on that team that I'm excited for, and we get to host the next round and trying to add a star back to this kit because we took one off when we joined a new league. Besides that, been doing Open Cup qualifying, been covering 2 Open Cup controversies, and it's been chaotic all around.
All right. Well,
as always with you.
As always with him. Yes, let's get into it. We're going to do 11 players. We're going to take a short break, jump into the last one, and we also have 2 emails tonight that we'll get to at the end. Now, if you are a frequent listener of Seeing Red and you know that we did this back in the spring during the break, what we've done is we've added full season stats in each of our grades, and we'll go through exactly what we thought about each particular player. And that's how we're going to roll. So let's just get into it. This is in descending order of all comps minutes played in 2025. So let's start off with the captain, Emil Forsberg, 13 goals and 8 assists. Not really much more than you want from your DP. Mike, let's start with you.
Yeah, so Forsberg, he's not the goal scorer. He's not, and he was never brought in to be the goal scorer. I just liked what I saw from this year because he kept that leadership mentality. He was good at playmaking. That's why he led this team on assists. It just felt like it was another solid year from him, and I'm very happy to see him. Even in a bad season, he was one of the bright spots, and I'm hopeful that whatever happens next year, he can continue to be that leader and he continue to do what he's been doing.
Dan, an A- for Mr. Forsberg?
Yeah, I think he showed what he was doing last year. I think maybe, he fell off a bit, with his consistency in certain games where you were expecting a bit more. But overall, I mean, he had one of the better seasons in recent memory for this team. I mean, first 10 season in a while for the club. So I think with him going forward, into next year as your captain and your guy in the middle of the field, because I feel like that's just where he plays best at this moment in time with his aging body. He played 39 games, again.
Amazing.
Like shout out to him, 3,000 minutes. So, A- for just a slight lack of consistency in certain games, but overall he was one of the better players this year, and a main reason why Red Bull was in it for, up until where they were.
Yeah. By the way, for those of you watching on YouTube, this was the old template that I used that says midterm grades on the top. We're obviously talking about full-term grades. 1,000 pardons. For me, Forsberg did just about everything that Red Bull fans could have wanted, except get the team in the postseason.
Yep.
That would have been an A for me. But nevertheless, among the best scores you'll see out of everyone here on the team. Let's go to Noah Isla. Very, very, some might say identical grades, a goal and an assist for, I think what we can all agree is the strongest central defender that the Red Bulls have. Throw in the fact that he can dribble and he can get into the attack. I mean, no challenges for me for this player, Dan.
Yeah, I think, I only have one person with a full A grade, but, Noah Isla rivals anybody on this team for best season. Just what he had to go through with the multiple changing pieces next to him from right back to left center back. And when he was playing on the left side, left back as well. So I think he did almost everything he could this year to be, get that A- grade. I think he just showed that he's one of the best center backs in the league. I think he's slept on around the league. I don't think many people know about him. So for Red Bull, keep it that way. He's been one of the shining lights on this team. And if they can get him a true partner next year, I think this team could be heading back in the right direction.
All right, Mike, another straight A for this guy.
Yeah, it's funny. I had him at A-, near both agreeing with both of you two. But when I looked at the grade of the other Red Bull center back, I kind of realized, some of that grade should go to him because he had no help in that position or very little help in that position and did very well with it. I thought that after the loss of, Andres Reyes and a bunch of the defense, he was going to struggle this year. It wasn't him who struggled, it was everyone else. And I think the work he's done, both not just as a defender, as a transition player, I'm actually surprised he only had one assist because if you go on Hockey Rules, there were so many plays that started from the back that went up through him. It was very much a good season from him. And yeah, I think Dan's right. One of the most slept on center backs in the league.
Yeah, for sure. The other DP for New York, Chupo, literally was the best goal scorer that New York had since Bradley Wright Phillips was here. 18 goals and 5 assists in all competitions. And while at this point in the middle of the year, I think we're a little concerned that so many of the goals were coming via the penalty spot. Well, that was not the case in the second half of the year because Chupo was getting on balls left, right, and center. And frankly, the finish that he had at Columbus on decision day was as high degree of difficulty as many as he scored. I mean, he basically volleyed it from just outside the box and beat the keeper to the far corner. So an A- for me. Again, I don't know what much more I was hoping for from Chupo other than a playoff berth. So that for me is the measure. And Dan, this Chupo gets an A from you.
Yeah, I think he is your MVP this year. I think he showed, what people were hoping from him. Obviously, people coming into the season were like, could he play the games, right? And for me, taking that away, like just saying if he's going to be healthy full season, I was expecting 15 goals, and he did exactly what I was expecting from him. His quality on the ball itself just like showed a different level of striker that Red Bull hasn't had since Bradley Wright Phillips. And they're different type of strikers, right? Bradley's sure. the big goal scorer. Chupo's a guy that's going to come in the midfield, receive the ball, and play other players in as well. But to put up 18 goals with, Emil Forsberg is your only playmaker, basically, is very eye-opening. So, he showed from that LA Galaxy game for me, when I saw his confidence kind of just skyrocket through the roof, that was the point for me that like started his season on a high point. I think he played as perfect as you could in most games. There were some goals where you were like, he should have scored that, but that's going to come with a striker of his quality. So, I give him an A. He was the best player for me all season overall. So can't wait to see him next year, and hopefully there's more pieces around him because I think he could be a 20-25 goal scorer with more pieces around him.
I think the challenge is going to be him repeating the kind of durability we saw in 2025. Mike, at B plus. What?
Hater.
So my issue with Chupo is that even with 18 goals, I don't think. First of all, how many games he started versus
Amazing.
how many games he started? Yes. Why is it that of his 17 or 18 goals, like there's only 6 games where he was the opening goal scorer? He has never been consistent to like get a game started. Why are you starting up front if you can't score a goal consistently, like to start a game? Only 6 of his goals were opening goals for the Red Bulls. I don't like the fact that he only scored braces twice. I don't like the fact that he consistently misses the shots like he's an NFL kicker and missing like the Giants kicker. I don't understand why just because he scored 17 goals he's like the A-Rod of the Red Bulls right now. How many of those goals actually mattered? How many of those goals actually led to direct points? So many of them just seem like, okay, they're goals, great. 5 of them PKs, a lot of them against bad teams, non-playoff teams.
Oh, wow.
I don't think that just because you scored 18 goals, that makes you like one of the best players. Emil Forsberg had more of an impact on this team than he did. And I'm just going to say right now, I hope that I'm wrong next year. But for me, he needs to narrow himself and he needs to have people around him because the offense trying to shove goals through him is ridiculous.
I mean, I'll chime in real quick. Sounds like Mike didn't want to give him a B plus.
No,
being honest.
Yeah.
Me and Mark talked about that.
He was tied for 7th in the league in scoring. This is like, no, the goals weren't pretty enough. All right, let's keep moving on. We got 22 players to get to. Daniel Edelman, Daniel Edelman has been part of the Red Bulls program for a very, very long time. And while he is still considered a young player, I felt like this year, from an impact standpoint, he took a little bit of a step back. I thought he imprinted himself less on games in 2025 than he did in 2024. And maybe it was just a question of Sandro asking him to be a different type of player, to be more of a shuttler rather than a destroyer, although he did plenty of destroying. I just think he set a very high bar in 2024, and I don't know if he could have improved. I mean, at the end of the season, he wound up losing his starting spot over the last few games to Donkar and Berggren. And so I know he was the captain of the U20 national team at one point. I don't know if I'm seeing the increased development. The work rate absolutely continues to be excellent. I just don't know if he's growing more arrows in his quiver. Dan, what do you think?
Beginning of the season, I actually really thought like I saw steps in his game where he was passing the ball better. His switches were improving. I just thought he was overall improving. But right after our midseason grades, I think something maybe in like tactically with Sandro or something like physically maybe hampering him. I think he kind of started to falter a bit throughout the season. And I don't know if it's, it was a long season last year. And, again, it's just a lot of minutes on his body and with the physical toll that, he plays with, where he's running the most out of anybody every game. Maybe that caught up to him. But, yeah, as you said, it kind of, down the last stretch of the season, he lost his job to Donkar and Berggren. So it's going to be interesting. Obviously, the rumors are out there that, European clubs are interested in him. So maybe Red Bull, sees that he's peaked at the club and could kind of maybe cash in on a homegrown midfielder and then promote from within. But, yeah, it was definitely an interesting last couple of games for Red Bull with Daniel Edelman. So I think that second half of the season kind of soured me a bit. So that's why I gave him the B-.
Mike?
He's both of the Red Bulls young midfielders that were very high last year, or at least looked high before maybe one got injured. They both had downgrades this year. For me, Edelman had a quieter year than last year. I will say that everyone did, so I can't just put it on him.
Yeah.
But definitely, if you are the Red Bulls, if you're going to sell him, you try and sell him now before it gets worse, or like while his stock is a little high. Overall, I just think that with how unstable the midfield was, there wasn't much you could do, especially after Carballo left. But yeah, it's just tough for him to find his place with so many moving pieces.
All right. I think we're all kind of in agreement here. It just was not an impactful year for Edelman. All right. Now, okay. If you're listening,
Woof.
what has just gone up on the screen is Wiki Carmona's stats. 2,279 minutes. He played in every single game that the Red Bulls played in 2025, or actually just one short. 39 games, 1 goal and 1 assist. And Mike, I want to flip it back to you immediately. And why don't you share with this group, what you gave him?
I gave that man an F because he is just. I will never forget right after the FIFA Club World Cup, sitting with Dan Reban over here,
God.
and he made the comment to me. I forget what the game was, but you said we went from watching Cole Palmer and Chelsea to Wiki Carmona. What is wrong with us? He doesn't move the ball. Like he's scared to pass. He's like a deer in the headlights. When he does get the ball, he just stands still. It's just hard. It's so troubling to watch him, and he feels like he should be in USL because he is one of the MSU Messis alongside Tom Barlow. So send him down to Red Bulls too. I just don't see him as an MLS player. He doesn't have the ability, or he's in the wrong system, but it's just not working out here.
Dan?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about Wiki and his game the past couple of years ad nauseum. For whatever reason, he's just not direct to goal anymore. He's passing backward anytime he can. It is what it is with him. I think it's an indictment on the team that nobody would take his job. I think that's probably the biggest indictment on Jochen Schneider is that, you had nobody on the team that was good enough to be like, you know what, I can take Wiki Carmona's job because he played every game but one, and he started. He might as well have just penned him in every game because, and it's just hilarious. Like when Mike would go into pressers with Sandro, and obviously Mike relishes that moment sometimes where he always wants to ask about Wiki Carmona and why he's still playing. But like, if you're Sandro, it's like you kind of have to with all the options he has. So it's tough. But yeah, Wiki Carmona, especially with how much he's making every season, he's not an MLS player. He shouldn't be on the team next year. But it's going to be hard for someone with that contract to come in and pick that up. Like who's trading for Wiki Carmona in MLS?
Right. You need a buyer. So Dan gave him an F as well. I gave Wiki a D- because I don't feel that clearly, if you've been listening to Seeing Red all year, you know that Wiki is not a fit in this tactical arrangement. But without Lewis Morgan and without Cam Harper and without an effective Dennis Yengar, and I realize he's playing on the other side, he's there. He's like the spice that you season to taste. He adds very, very little. As Mike said, he rarely looks to make a penetrating pass. He seems to not really know what to do. He stops running. But again, I think Wiki at age 23, he's been here 6 or 7 years. He doesn't have his countrymen and Cáceres here anymore. And I think, I think a new venue would be good for Wiki. Much has been written by our friend Matt Doyle about how little he actually produces on the field. He sure plays, though. He plays those minutes.
Might as well have me out there if we're being real.
All right. I like it. Let's try. I'm going to challenge our host to keep our comments safe, shorter, as we can get through 22 players in in the time allotted. Sean Nealis had a goal on the season, 2,150 minutes. Also seemed to fall out of favor down the stretch. Dan, let's start with you. A C minus.
Yeah, I think he was one of another, handful of guys that just took a step back this year. And, heading into, a year where, your contract is up and could be declined heading into the offseason, it just came at the worst time. And with him making over 600K, I just don't see him being brought back. Like, that's just a bit too rich for a bench player at this point.
Yeah.
Even with all his experience and what he's done for the club, he just wasn't as stable as most years. Like, obviously he would have his volatile moments in each year, but this year they have happened a lot more than usual. So a C minus for me. It's unfortunate, but yeah, I think they're gonna move on this offseason.
Mike gave him a D. Mike.
Yeah, mostly because I didn't see him at the end of the season, and I think that was the indictment of his play. We saw last year part of a really good tandem in the defense. This year, without the help, it really exposed him. Last year, the issue was he kept getting yellow cards and yellow card suspensions. This year, it just felt like he was just getting beaten all the time. And unfortunately, he's getting up there in age. I don't see the Red Bulls. I don't know what the Red Bulls will do with that contract. He's been a part of this team, had the captain's armband. I don't know what's going to happen, but not one of his best years. Might be his worst as a Red Bull.
I think since he truly broke into the first team.
Yeah,
this was a backwards year for him. I gave him a C. Let's go to Peter Stroud, who's another player who also lost his spot down the stretch. 3 assists this year. Hasn't truly returned from his pre-injury form, and Mike gave him a C.
Yeah, I gave him a C because again, he kind of disappeared, and I will just say that I've mentioned with Edelman, both young midfielders just had down years. And I will say Stroud's issue was also missing pieces, but like you said too, it's been a case of him having a downward trend since returning from his injury. And now we can't just blame the pieces. We kind of have to look at the player. And I like Peter Stroud. I think he's a very talented player. I think he has a good mind for playmaking, but he just wasn't showing it this year. However, one of his assists, a couple of his assists, were beauties of setting up Chico and setting up Emil. So, moments.
Yeah. Dan gave him a D+.
Yeah, it's, and again, we always point back to that injury because prior to that, he was balling. But since that injury, he just hasn't recovered. He's just lost a step. He's a bit, his defending has taken a hit. He had a couple of good moments, as you guys pointed out, but I just don't think he's a starter for this team anymore. He also has his option up for potential decline, especially with guys like Adri Mehmeti and Aiden Jarvis with the second team looking to make that jump to the first team. It's going to be interesting. I like Peter Stroud, but it's just, we're already almost 2 years since that injury that he suffered in 2020 early
24.
Yeah, so early 24. So we're already 18 months since then, and it just seems like he hasn't gotten that back and probably won't get it back. So unfortunate, but yeah, I just don't think he played overall well this year. So a D+ for me. A bit harsh, but it's what you gotta do sometimes. It's a bit harsh.
I gave him a C+. I was a little kinder. Okay. Mohamed Sofo at the break when we originally did midterm grades was riding high. He had scored 5 goals on the season in MLS play. He was brimming with confidence. And then it just stopped. It just stopped cold. Now, we had talked about, I know I talked about with both of you guys, the idea that he had never played so many games in a year before.
Yep.
But you can look at this 2 ways, like, hey, where'd you go, buddy? But the potential is there. And if you were talking about at the beginning of the season, Mohamed Sofo, 8 goals in all competitions, you would be like, that's insane. That's that's a phenomenal mark for the young player. It just seemed like he kind of tripped himself up here by being so strong out of the gate. I mean, I know there was 22 under 22 talk, and then it just stopped. So Dan gave him a B.
Yeah, I think, I had the highest grade on him at midseason. I gave him a perfect A+. And, my expectations changed at that point. And since that midseason point, he kind of, it toppled. And you brought up the he hasn't played that many games in his life. And I also was talking about that. Like that's a big thing for a young guy when you're just, playing games with the second team, playing with his academy back in Africa. It's just like when you're finally thrust into that moment with the first team and you're playing all these games, all these minutes for the first time in your life, eventually your body's not used to it and you're going to get gassed out. But I will say, an overall B grade is a very positive one because Red Bull found a player. They found a piece to this team. Should he be the starter next year? No, because that means you just didn't bring anybody else in to complement what you already have. He should be one of the first guys off the bench. And if he's the guy that's coming off your bench as the second winger, I mean, that's a really good squad. That's a really good player. And I think that's the role he should be suited for next year. I think that's just what, his age, because he still needs to develop,
Yes, he needs to develop physically. He needs to get stronger.
This was only his second full season, I believe, in North America. So still a young guy. So still has time to develop. Bring him off the bench, give him spot starts when he deserves it. But 8 goals in this season, I think that was a very positive output from Mohamed Sofa this year.
Mike, you want to talk about a B, C minus?
Bro?
You messed up.
I messed this up. This should be a B minus C plus. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Also, Dan, could you leave something for me to talk about, please? All I'm gonna say is that Dan's right in the sense that he's a young player. I think one of our friends, your friend of mine, Anthony Merced over at AJM Sports, said this best, that he's a young kid. You shouldn't expect him to do veteran player things.
Yep.
Yes.
And having that early season surge, the Open Cup, like scoring the most goals of any Red Bull player in the Open Cup, that's great for him. And then afterwards, like he kind of slowed down.
Yeah,
I went with C plus B minus because it depends on what player you got, like full season. Like B minus because he was scoring goals, but you could still see like he's growing and he's still trying to find himself. C plus because you still saw those mistakes. You still saw like either bad shots or you saw him try and like hold the ball too long and then all of a sudden the defender just gets right in on him. But that's young kid stuff. That's exactly what he's supposed to. I think the reason my grade went a little lower, like at the worst end, was because once they realized they had to use him, they kept using him, and that just ruined him further and further. So I don't think his confidence is going to be shot or anything like that.
No.
But, it's a learning tool for him to move into next season.
Fair enough. Okay, next up, guys, the Raheem Edwards experience. I was hard-pressed to find the 2 assists that Edwards recorded.
I think one against the Canadian team.
We all gave him C-range grades. I think, again, the story was Marcelo Morales was not yet ready to go, and New York needed a veteran hand, and with Valencia as well, brand new, I think they just needed to get someone to replace Tolkien in the position. And we both know, all 3 of us know, there are times that Raheem Edwards looks incredibly incisive and decisive, and he breaks down defenses with attacks and he helps start attacks. And there are times where he is literally a turnover machine, giving the ball away in the most horrific ways. And so for me, literally right in the middle is a C. Mike?
This grade would have been a D or worse if he didn't get better at the end of the season, because he did have an uptick. I guess you could say it was around Leagues Cup time, but he just started to actually not get beaten as much on his wing. He wasn't playing like a journeyman player. He was actually starting to fit into what the defense was. And we've already said the defense is falling apart aside from one center back. So overall, I will say that I don't know if he's jumped from MLS team to MLS team like on 1-year contracts. He's on a 2-year contract.
He is. He'll be here next year.
He will be here next year. I'm not happy about that, but I'm not dreading it. It's not terror anymore. It's just,
Okay, Dan.
First of all, I will say I don't think it's a guarantee that he'll be here next year.
Well, he's under contract for next year.
Well, no, he is under contract, but having 3 left backs on a first team roster is a bit of a roster like conundrum. Like that shouldn't be. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, I think my grade also would have been a D. But him coming in when Valencia went down with that shoulder injury, that kind of just nagged him for the rest of the season until he played the last game. I think him doing that job, that to kind of step in the role, not to rush Morales as well. I think I gave him a bit of more positive grade just for on that aspect. Because again, I just don't think he's a left back anymore in his career. I think he's just more of a winger. Forward, like he showed down the stretch. Like his playmaking is still there. You see it with his technical ability. It's just he's just not fast. His defensive IQ is not the best. So it's gonna be interesting. Because Morales is definitely a full go next year. Like he just showed his quality this season. Like when he played this year, like he showed that he is a left back in this league. And then Valencia when he's healthy, I mean, he showed it this year as well, like with his 5 assists early in the year. Like he's an MLS left back. So I don't know if there's room for him. I think they could trade him for something like a little bit of GAM for a left back needy team. But I think, in the games that he played, he did improve down the stretch. So I think that and just stepping in when the team needed him, I think I bumped him up to a C-.
All right. Kyle Duncan, I'm the outlier here, and perhaps it's simply because of the expectation of him. I think I don't know if the expectations should be all that high. Didn't score a goal, 3 assists. He certainly put plenty of balls in the 20th row, balls rolling out on a goal, on a corner kick clearance, falling to him 30 feet, 30 yards outside the box. He's going to shoot. I don't know why he's going to shoot. He shoots it anyway. He misses the goal terribly. I don't know how much. I don't think he was a total liability. Like just fine, like acceptable in a world where this team has more solid healthy attacking options. I wouldn't call him a liability. Dan, what do you think? C+ for you?
Yeah, it's just my expectations of him are based on how much he's making and the role that
fair enough
that he should be taking. Like when he's at the top of his game, like he showed that he could be, a really good right back in this league. But again, it's just this consistency issue. And, sometimes he's having a worldie of a game where he's playing really good defense, but then there's also times where he's turning the ball over. He's skying those shots, and Terrell's said, he's just not having a good game, or he gets, yanked off after like 35 minutes or whatever it was against
picking
Philly.
up a yellow card, right?
So, yeah, I think, and again, he's another guy that has his option up, making a lot of money. I don't see him being brought back. So I think it was just an average year for him. That's why I gave him a C+. And
all right,
yeah.
Mike also gave him a C+.
Yeah, I mean, remember the team that he was in Belgium didn't want him back so bad they just folded. Look, she's just so nothing, and I don't mean that. It's just he's not the same player as he was when he first left. I don't think we're ever going to see that again. I will say that he was better in the second half than he was in the first, but yeah, it's still too much for temper, too much for liability, in my opinion. Someone who probably shouldn't be on this team going forward, and I don't know. He'll probably get an MLS job, but I don't know where he's going to, where he could even land. Like, what is his level? He's got too many cons and like not enough positives that he can like land those sort of jobs that MLS players usually can. So I don't know. I got nothing, man.
Alexander Hawk was brought in with the idea that he was going to be a steady hand on the back line. And he scored some goals with his head during the preseason and off of restarts. And I think a lot of people were like, yeah, let's go. And I think it became very apparent very early in the season when Hack was starting that he just didn't have any speed whatsoever. And he found himself by the middle of the season, I think he found himself an injury replacement. There were a couple of games where he was paired with Tim Parker, which was very, very curious because neither of them, I think, certainly had a ton going on in the speed department. And so these are depressing grades. Mike, let's go with you first.
Yeah, just someone who I won't say that he had high. Yeah, he did have high expectations, but it's a defender. I don't really having defender high expectations is different than having Choupo-Moting high expectations. Yeah, of the two Hawks that play in the New York City metro area on MLS teams, this was the worst one. Just someone who looked old. That goal against the goal that Leo Messi scored against the New York Red Bulls, where Sandro was more worried about the offside. The offside was so bad and not called. And I'm like, how about you talk about the fact that your defender just got beat by like a 45-year-old? Like, how about we talk about that?
Right.
And just outran. So just someone who showed his age.
Dan, a D.
First of all, call offside when offside is there. That's all I'll say about that. But I coming into this season, that was my whole, red flag about him, right? Was that, he's not the paciest guy and he will get beat. And, that's what came true. But I will say this was definitely a bet that Red Bull should have made, like to bring in a guy of his stature and his quality, to bring him in and test him out to see if it worked. And you know what? It just didn't work, and sometimes they don't work out. But I feel like taking a chance on his quality was definitely the right choice, but it just didn't work out. I think, pace aside, like he still has the defensive IQ.
Yes, he does.
His play on the ball was excellent. It's just, he's just not at that, the play ran passed him by at this point of his career. And it's unfortunate, but yeah, I think they have to move on after 1 year.
All right. Omar Valencia was a curious case because I remember, he started the first game of the year and it was like, what's going on here? This is crazy. Had those 5 assists by the middle of the season and then got the shoulder injury and missed the entire second half of the season. 18 games that he started, which is in all competitions, almost 1,500 minutes. And I think, perhaps somewhat similarly to Mohamed Sofo, right? Here's a young player that showed out early in the year, and in this case, due to injury, not just a drop in form, was largely absent from the team's second half. I gave him a B-. Mike and Dan each gave him Bs. Dan, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think, he was on his way to being like, on that U22 or the 22, he was just showing his quality. And, unfortunately, injury stopped that. And I kind of liken it to Red Bull 2 right back, Aymar Modelo, who also picked up a shoulder injury in practice back in April. His was much more significant, where he had shoulder surgery and just appeared for the first time in the playoff game on Sunday. I think this injury hampered him more than expected because he didn't get surgery. And I think surgery is probably an option this winter that he should look at. But yeah, prior to the injury, he was balling. So my grade only lowers because he didn't play much the second half of the season. But if he kept on playing, he was on the road to a potential A season.
Mike, anything to add?
Yeah, I really wish Red Bull would stop taking players who get called up by Central American and South American national teams. No, to have 5 assists as a defender just shows his ability. I'm surprised. There were a couple times he nearly got on the goal sheet too, scoring a goal.
He was leading the team in assists at one point.
And it's just his pace too, right?
Yeah, he's an all-around great package player. I hate to say this because it makes it sound like I'm lazy, but he kind of got that John Tolkien ability. But I will say that, well, yeah, how he's 20 or 21? 21. He's 21. We got a lot of time to go with him. I just think his ups, kind of like Sofo, like he did everything he needed to do. The only difference is that he didn't have as much time to screw it up and like tank his own stats. So yeah, I liked what I saw.
I just want to say before we move on, left back looks really promising for this team going forward with him, Morales and Matty Dos Santos, who's going to get a homegrown in 2027. So,
I want you all to keep in mind we're just over halfway through. We only are rating players that got more than 500 minutes with the first team, so that means no Bergeron, no Morales, no John McCarthy, who played one game and.
I still gave him a grade. So.
All right, I appreciate.
Show up to training on time, and then you'll play games.
There you go. Wow. Here's Dylan Nealis. This is a little bit of a range here. I mean, Nealis had, I think, similarly to what he's had before, a kind of an informed streak during the year where it was like, wow, this is good, Dylan Nealis. We really like this. But that form did not extend to the entire season. Yes, he was dealing with an injury, 1,300 minutes, 2 goals and an assist. I mean, is Dylan Nealis the starting right back in 2026? Mike, you gave him a B.
Even though I gave him a B, I don't know the answer to that question. And it might not. Maybe it shouldn't be yes. I gave him a B because, one, because he did well, and 2, because I always feel like I have really gone hard on Dylan Nealis for years because I thought he was only brought onto this team because of his brother. And he has shown out this year. And I really liked what I saw from him this year, even though he took a slight step back. Scored his first goal ever. That's an up in a letter grade automatically, man. But there were times where that right side was getting torn apart in the early season. And as the season went on, he really started to find himself more. Towards the end, it fell off again. But I would say, I don't know if it was mind games. I don't know if it was training. I don't know what it was, but I can appreciate a player getting like changing it up and like getting better and adapting instead of just, Wiki Carmona.
Okay. Well, if that's your bar, Dan, give him a C+.
Yeah, I just think he was average again this year. Yep. I mean, like you said, he had points where he was really good. But that's just been his problem with Kyle Duncan as well. It's, they'll have those really good games where he's scoring that game winner against Philly, right? He scored.
Yeah,
he scored against Philly, game winner at home when they needed it most. But then there were other games where he's just getting foul calls on him left and right. He's getting blown by. So to answer your question, he should not be the starter. He's a really capable backup in this league where if he's a spot starter, that's perfectly fine with me. But if he's starting, 15 games a season, more than likely that's not going to bode well for you, just with his consistency issues. But yeah, overall average year for Dylan Nealis. I do expect him to be back though.
All right. Ronnie D with
Wait, did you say what you thought about Nealis?
I mean, I think I did. I he was streaky. Again, he had a limited run of really strong form, and I think, I think the Red Bulls could certainly do worse by having him being the starting right back in 2026. I just, I don't know if he took a step forward this year. He was very in great form last year. I didn't see it this year.
Fair enough. All
right, Ronnie D. I gave him a B. I thought, again, he missed a lot of games in the first half of the season. He seemed to gain his confidence as we went on for the year. And I thought that, he's a player for the future. Surely he's had a really strange kind of parabola-like arc here where he was starting and making a lot of impactful starts, and then things kind of fell off for him. I think with Schwartz in the mix, he kind of took a step back, and then he worked his way back from injury. I liked what I saw. I want to see more of it. Mike?
Yeah, same as you. again, a player who, when I did see him play, I really didn't see him screw up too much. I liked what I saw. Someone who I think can keep developing. The question is, I don't know if this B plus is his ceiling, because I don't know
Yeah.
how much better you can be. Like, from what I don't know what else he can do with the way I've seen him play to elevate that. He might just be this kind of player, which means when they get when they bring in other names, he might be on the bench, which is fine. But like
Right.
overall, good season.
Okay. Dan, a C plus on Doncor.
Yeah, it's just I only gave him a C plus because my expectations for Ronnie are very high. I've seen the type of player he can be. He's the type of player that can dominate a game in midfield. I think he could be one of the best players on this team going forward in the future. It's just about him finding that ceiling that he has. Early this year, he was terrible, and he just couldn't get on the field. For whatever reason, that's what happened. He also had that injury as well.
Yeah.
But I will say, down the stretch, he did get better and better. So that improved his grade for me to a C plus. But I mean, he knows it. Everybody that's seen him play through the system knows it, that he can be one of the better players on this team, especially with taking the ball from the defense and bringing it forward. So expectations for me are just higher. C plus for me, but I'm expecting him to take a big jump next year, especially if they remain with Berggren and him in midfield. I think those two kind of complement each other.
Okay. Tim Parker is a curious case, right? Returned to the club after a number of years being selected in expansion drafts. Had one goal against Montreal. Didn't start often, got roasted and toasted quite badly against DC. But down the stretch, he was one of New York's most in-form center backs. And I thought he improved as the season went on, and I gave him a B. Let's go to Dan first with the C plus.
Yeah, I think, his role this year was to be that kind of, fourth center back, that veteran guy in the room. And for majority of the season, he was. And then when he came in down the stretch of the year, he showed that he's still a very capable center back. He didn't wow you in anything. Occasionally, he did have those mistakes that cost them points down the stretch next to Noah Isla. But, he's aside from Sean Nealis, who I don't think they'll bring back, I think Tim Parker is a guy that they should bring back as that depth player at center back. I think he still has it for an occasional start. He's he wants to be here. So I'm hoping they bring him back because I think he can be a very capable player on the bench next year.
All right. And a B for Mike.
Yeah, it says something when Dan can say he was the fourth choice center back and he started 13 games of the 16 he played. But when he was playing, no real issue with him. I would take him over Hack. I would take him over I almost said Aaron Long. Sean Nealis. It's just that what his role is. He did his role well. And like I said, when I first started covering this team in 2019, I said, the dude looks like a bouncer at a club. He will just muscle up to dudes and shove them with his arm if needed. And it works. And I just think he is that center back where you ain't going to get flashy. You're just going to see a dude who's big coming at you like a train. And that works.
All right.
I mean, it also showed just how bad that center back group was this year.
Yeah, it was not good. Dennis Yengar, and I want to start.
Mike could go first.
No,
yeah.
I know you want to go first. 990 minutes, only 11 starts, 3 goals, and an assist. And Dan gave him a D.
You want me to go first?
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh, I was gonna let Mike go first, but yeah, I just don't think he's been good. He might have 3 goals, but I think the eye test tells a different story. He was brought in to be a guy that contributes on a daily basis for this team. Just hasn't been that. He was brought in to be one of the the fastest players on the pitch. I consistently see him get beat to balls. It just hasn't worked out. And for a guy that's occupying a U22 spot, he's been very disappointing. At times he was sent down to the second team, and he wasn't even playing wing. He was playing right back for Red Bull too. So it kind of shows you where they have him in that totem pole this year. Yes, he got a couple starts down the stretch of the season when they were eliminated, the first team, but I think he's a guy that is not here next year. And he did have potential when he came in, but it just hasn't worked out. Maybe it's the system, but I just don't think he was good this year, unfortunately for Red Bull.
A B- for Mike.
Yeah, I still go off the fact that I still think he has a higher ceiling than people realize, because when you showed me those 5 players last time we spoke, of disappointing players from the New York Red Bull, and I just said, of those 5, I would keep Dennis, because I still think he's better than, if Red Bull doesn't bring anything else in, I'd rather keep him than those 5. Get rid of Wiki and get rid of, I forget who else. But the problem is that I didn't really have an issue with him, and I just thought he was a B player. I really didn't see anything that made me hate him. And there were players on his team that made me hate them. And he just kind of was there, filling up space and just doing good sometimes and doing bad sometimes.
He said he's a B player, and you gave him a B-. So I think that's really good.
Just one more point as well. I know we want to move on. When you have Andy Rojas coming to this team next year and Rafa Mosquera, what we've seen with them with the second team, I think they just offer more, and they kind of are players that Sandro Schwartz wants on the wing. They're more direct players. So
yes,
I think they'll be better than what Dennis Gengar provided this year.
I gave him a C-. Mike knows how I feel about Yengar. He is not good enough to be a U22 player. He is not confident going forward.
Yep.
Balls that Cam Harper would take to the goal line, Yengar would simply turn and pass back to the central defensive mids. Rarely took on players. Just not good enough. I'm sorry. And I get that he's young, and this is when people have an issue with Jochen Schneider, I'm going to be honest with you, this signing is emblematic of a player that he brought in with the idea that he would be some sort of missing piece or game changer or a player that can grow into the role. And as we talked about earlier, he couldn't take Wiki Carmona's spot. He couldn't take Sofo's spot.
Yeah.
And what are we doing? I mean, I'm sure he's a lovely guy. Not good enough.
I love how both of you are so disappointed in him, and it's I don't know, the funny man with the Pokemon name. I really just don't care.
No, come on. I don't. Okay. I'll start here. Julian Hall is a player for the future. Again, he's a teenager. He only had 8 starts, 2 goals, less than 1,000 minutes. This for me, for a young striker, is a B/incomplete almost, because he really didn't earn enough time, and it was very difficult, I think, to earn playing time when one of the forwards, excuse me, is Choupo-Moting. And you've got to, I guess, beat Sofo to the other spot. Just more to come. Too young. It'll be better. Mike gave him a C+. Mike?
Oh, you're talking to me.
Mike gave him a C+.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't think I was going first on this one.
It's okay.
Look, I guess I was second. Look, it's just a situation of when the forwards are all, it was all going through Choupo, for better or for worse. And that kind of shows he's a young player. He's still trying to find himself, and we can't expect him to lead this team in goals. And I think that we do see promise here. I think his grade just comes down because of the forward position was so depleted that we kept looking at him to do something. We kept poking with the stick.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Sofo was doing that for a hot minute. It's why can't you be like Sofo? But overall, he was fine as he is, high ceiling. I just give him a C+ because 2 goals scored in 31 games played just bothers me a lot.
Okay. I mean, to be fair, some of these appearances were in the single digit of
Yes.
minutes.
Yeah. Yes.
To be fair.
Yeah.
Yes, a couple of them. I mean, like that's still. I think there was like 20 something games where he played like
25
games,
minutes.
Like,
yeah. You didn't know he was on the field. Okay. Dan gave him a C+ also.
Yeah, and it's just an overall. This grade is just overall of his whole season this year, right? 2025. Because in certain games when he came on, it's just like he doesn't deserve to be there, but he definitely improved down the stretch of the year. Like I think his best game was that NYC game where he scored. He was rewarded with that goal. I'm very high on Julian, and I said this, the midseason grades. I think he knows where he needs to be at. I think the team knows where they want him to be at. It's just about him getting there, and people need to remember, man, he's a 2009 born player.
Agreed.
17 years old. There's only one other 2009 player getting minutes, and that's Kevon Sullivan down in Philly. So for him to almost get 1,000 minutes is definitely a positive step for him. Scored 2 goals. I'm just hoping he takes that next step. I would hope that he stays in the gym this winter, because I think he just needs to put on just a bit more muscle to kind of stay in the men's game. I think sometimes he was bullied off the ball a bit, but I think he has that potential. He has the frame to put on that weight, and he could be a really impactful player next year if he takes that next step this offseason. So C+ for this year, but he's one of our better prospects in the whole system. So I'm very high on him, and I hope he comes back better next year.
U17
and
national
good luck.
team.
Good luck to him and Aiden Stokes at the U17 World Cup.
It was really telling that late in games, Forsberg wasn't looking at him at all. It was just Chupo, which makes sense. But
it's just trust,
you got the sense late in games that he maybe was not trusted with opportunities to do a little something different.
Yeah.
Oh, Serge. 24 games, 800 minutes, 1 goal. Dan gave him a D+. Dan, why'd you do that?
It's unfortunate with Serge, but I think the injuries have kind of taken its toll on his body, and it's just not where he was as a 16-year-old when he was here, blazing by players with his pace, his ultra confidence to take on players, to dribble at them, and scoring goals as a 16-year-old. I think he is still the youngest goal scorer in the club's history. So it's just unfortunate. I just don't think he's at MLS quality at the moment. Maybe he gets there again in the future. Just for this year, 2025, I don't think he hit that mark, and it was a bit disappointing for him and for the fans, because I think he definitely has the ability to. He could have been that guy to take that spot from Wiki Carmona. It's just with all those injuries, with everything kind of going against him in previous years, it was hard for him to get back to that level this year.
Mike, 1 click up with a C-.
Yeah. If we talked about Peter Stroud and how he had something and then hasn't been able to get back since the injury, I feel like Serge just never got to that point before the injury started mounting up, and that's the sad part. A lovely person.
Yes,
I
lovely.
wish
one of the best.
One of the best, and I wish all the best for him, whether that's in the lower division or maybe he goes abroad, maybe he goes to Canada, because I feel like the CPL would benefit someone like him, and he could fit in. But overall, as an MLS player, he's not clicking, and it's not working out in the system or in any sort of sense. I just don't know what to say about him.
Yeah, I think you said plenty. Let's keep going. 4 to go. Cam Harper played more than 500 minutes, so he's on this list with 726 minutes, 3 goals and 2 assists. But as we know, season-ending injury put him off. Both Mike and I gave him incompletes. Dan gave him a B. Was that on that small body of work, sir?
Yeah, I think he deserved the B. I think he was playing like one of the better players before his injury.
He was.
And I mean, like, just imagine him if he's healthy. I think Red Bull easily make the playoffs.
Mm.
But obviously injuries are injuries, and you can't come back from them. Me and Mike saw him after one game, and we were talking to him. He was in good spirits, but
Yeah,
that injury, hit him real hard. He was still on crutches, so.
yeah.
But for his body of work, 750 minutes. I mean, in those 8 starts, I mean, he did a lot in those games. So that's why I gave him a B.
All right, fair enough.
He deserves a B. He deserves a grade, so I gave him my B.
Victor Bogac scored a beautiful goal, but only played 24 games, 5 starts, 600 minutes. These grades are not kind. Mike, you want to tell us why you gave him a D+?
Hey, Dan, didn't we see him score a goal with the 2 team at Red Bull Arena in the baby Hudson River Derby?
Baby Derby?
Yep, he did score, and he looked amazing.
So, yeah, and that's the thing. I almost feel like my grade, kind of channeling stuff that Dan said, is that I keep seeing so much good with him in the second team, or keep seeing him do well, like in clips, and I feel like it just hasn't translated to the first team. My expectations are super high for him, and it's just I haven't seen it yet. Granted, he didn't play a lot of games, and I wonder if he didn't play a lot of games because he's not showing that.
Yeah.
But overall, I'm disappointed. It's not that I'm angry. I'm just disappointed, and I want more from him. And I feel like he could definitely take the next step with this team as like a second half guy and maybe work himself into a starting role. But like right now, he just needs to work on what's ahead, and that's being that second half pair of feet. And he's just not even consistent enough for that.
Yeah. Dan, C-.
Yeah, no, and again, my grade is based on expectations, just where he is on roster construction. Another guy that's a U22, player that just wasn't productive. And I will say, they brought him in. It was a big money move, $2 million. But when he comes in, he already has a back injury. Like,
Yeah.
That set him back a lot. He didn't play in preseason at all. He showed his ability. I think. He has that potential to be a really good player in this league. It's just another player that is a developmental guy that's occupying a U22 spot, and Red Bull's not in a position to be doing that at this point with their roster construction, with certain guys not producing. They needed a guy like Victor Bogac to be that secondary scorer for the team, and he's just not at that level yet.
Yeah.
I think he can get to that level. But as a U22 player, it's hard to, wait for that.
Agreed.
So
So
I think he's a guy that needs to go on loan next year. I would send him back to Poland, but in the first division, look for a team that needs a striker, work with them and let him get as many minutes as possible. Because he just needs to build his confidence up. He needs to play games at the first team level. He can't be playing for Red Bull too. So I see his potential. He just needs to go play at somewhere in a first division somewhere.
fair enough. Yeah, I'm not sold. Again, if you're bringing it, there are so many U22 players in this league that add impact, and neither Yengar nor Bogac are those players.
Yeah.
And that's not what that designation is for. Like, and again, it speaks to the challenges that Jochen has had in terms of identifying talent that, didn't start in the 2 team, right? Wasn't brought into the 2 team, came right into the first team. This is going to be a player that's going to contribute. And they just didn't. They didn't contribute. What are we doing? All right. Lastly, 2 more to go. The 2 keepers. All of us gave Carlos Coronel B's this year.
Did we do Felipe Carballo?
We didn't. He's no longer on the team, so
we don't need to talk about him.
Okay.
He's not here anymore. Again, the team clearly felt that the injuries were too great for him to go and
they've been proven right so far.
Yeah, so I'm fine with it.
All right.
Coronel, I thought, had a solid but not spectacular season for the Red Bulls. 10 clean sheets is really, really good. Carlos is a guy that's going to win you a few games with saves, and he also, to be fair, may lose you a couple of games over the course of the season with some poor play.
Oh boy, did he!
So we're all in agreement here. A B for Carlos. Thank you for your service, sir. I think he's certainly one of the most tenured keepers to ever play. 5 full seasons with New York, and we wish him well wherever he winds up next in his career. And as a pure shot stopper, there weren't too many that were better than him. Let's go to Mike. Your thoughts on Mr. Coronel as he departs the team?
There was a comment, I forget where I saw it. It could have been on social media, or it could have been in the Discord, where someone said that Carlos Coronel leaves the team as one of the best goalkeepers in team history, but also just short of legend status.
Yeah,
and I've been ruminating on that because it's interesting. The first ever Eastern Conference title, second ever conference title of all time, shout out West, but there's a reason why Paraguay doesn't use him, and it shows the inconsistency. There were years where I said, hey, he should be in the MLS All-Star game, that stupid charity game, that stupid nothing game. It felt like a disservice that he wasn't even included over other players, and like but the thing is, he'll always be behind players like Dwayne St. Clair or Columbus Crew player whose name I'm slipping on right now. Schulte. Yeah, and he kind of has that. He's got that Josh Allen effect where every time he's good, someone's going to be better. Overall, he's a player who will, like you said, will get you points. Am I hearing change? I feel like someone's messing with something. He'll get you points, but overall, there's enough issues where he was not perfect. That being said, he's on the Mount Rushmore and will always be remembered for that penalty kick shootout against Columbus.
Dan?
Yeah, I think he falls just short of Mount Rushmore, just with all the goalies of past, just the names, like the names are there for Red Bull. But yeah, I think, with Carlos, he's just been a very frustrating guy because, first half of the season, I thought he was really good. I think he was one of the better players in the league, like up there with Matt Freese. I think they were like 1-2 for me, like early in the season. But that second half of the season, man, when they needed him to make saves to keep him in games, when they were scoring, one goal or maybe just 2 goals to get him a point, right? Just wasn't making those saves. I think we saw it in the NYC game where it's just out of position. He gets chipped from inside the box with a header of all things, right? Chipped by a header. So yeah, I think it's okay for both sides to move on after all these years. I think he provided a net positive in those years. I just think he's stagnated a bit.
It's time to go. I mean,
yeah, it's time to move.
Let me just ask this real quick, then we can move on. I'm just kind of confused, though. We're all in agreement, but we also all just said that the back line looked like dreadful. And like a lot of those players finished the year with C grades, except for one dude, C or like B- grade. How much of that is on the defense and how much is that on Coronel?
Both for sure. I mean, again, as I said, he definitely kept New York in games. I mean, listen, they lost 15 games this year. They lost almost half their games.
Yeah.
And so, you definitely put a few on him, the header notwithstanding. I just think it was a down year for everyone on the defensive end. Let me close with this. I have the goalkeeping Mount Rushmore as Robles, Coronel, Miola, and Timmy Howard. Are there any others on this list that include Ryan Mera, Buna Kundul, Danny Sapero, John Conway, Johnny Walker? Like, I don't think so. And these are, to be clear, these are the 4 guys that have played the most in club history: Robles, Coronel, Miola, and Howard. But I mean, does anyone else break in there?
I feel like some people would put Mera over him just because he's just like that club legend, right? Like where he's been here for a long time. Because like the other 3 guys are clearly above him with their play, with their name, right? I just think maybe most people would put Mera just because he's that guy, he's that face, he's been around a long time, and he's just one of the guys, right? He's just one of the people.
Coronel played 179 times for the team. Ryan Mara 67.
Yeah, no, the stats definitely back up Coronel. I'm just saying,
I
feel
see
like-
what you're saying, Rebane.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
but no, the stats back him up. He's definitely one of the better goalkeepers since 2000 for this team. So,
Lastly is AJ Marcucci, who had a very unfortunate end to his 2025 season in Philadelphia. He had one clean sheet across the 7 games that he played. Dan, why don't you start off with an A- for the goalkeeper of the future for this team?
I mean, well, I don't know. We got to see what he looks like when he gets back. But I mean, he was on the way there. I mean,
Yeah.
even before that injury, he started those couple of games where, like, interesting that he's starting and Coronel's not starting, where you're like, oh, maybe Coronel was dealing with like a nagging injury. But eventually, right after he got injured, Sandro like revealed that, yeah, he won the starter job. So, I mean, he looked really good in all those games that he played. And it's just unfortunate that he suffers that injury down in Philly and they score on that, on that play where he's laying on the ground holding his knee and they score the game winner, where it's another, debacle down in Philly. But yeah, I think before that he was playing outstanding soccer, some of the best of his career. Like he took what he was doing from Red Bull 2 in 2023 when he went over to Finland in 2024, and he just brought all that confidence and success that he had in those 2 years and was showing on the first team level. So it's very sad because he was definitely going to be their goalie next year.
For sure.
So that leaves the
Stokes as
position
the backup.
Yeah, and so it leaves the position up in question next year.
Mike, comments on Marcucci?
My opinion of Marcucci is really based on the Open Cup run, and that's why I really want to thank you, Mark, for originally when these results were, or when these data was collected, it was only regular season, and I still was going to give him a B-, and I was just going to lie to you and say I'm actually talking about Open Cup. The fact of the matter is that he showed himself in those games. So you can, like the Colorado Switchbacks game, it's against a D2 team, whatever.
Right,
but I think there was like good results there. The FC Dallas game, where he held back an FC Dallas squad that was pretty much their A side.
That was their starting team.
Yeah, that was the starting team,
and then won the penalty shootout.
And he won the penalty shootout. As the Red Bulls decided, hey, we're gonna start our backups. And that was just I thought that it was him. I thought it was the Red Bulls kind of like throwing the game, or at least like focusing on regular season. And Dan saw me get really tilted.
Oh, he was crashing out.
I was crashing out really bad. But AJ and the subs were the reason why they went through that game.
Yeah.
And then the Philly game, it's so heartbreaking because that Philly game, he got injured. And of course, the game winner scored against him. And now we don't know what his career is going to look like. And it's just so frustrating.
Metro.
And it's very Metro. Above all, I don't think he's a perfect keeper. And I really feel like there were times he could have been just a C+. But that Open Cup run and this fact that U.S. Soccer did a story on him because they saw it too. I'm just like, yeah, I just wish him all the best. And I think he had a good season.
We've taken 75 minutes to go through 22 players.
Better than last time.
We are going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and do some emails. So keep it here. Oh, wow. Everybody's totally wigging out. That's good stuff. You can write us anytime you want, Seeing Red and White Gmail. We're not going to be back after tonight until there's actual news for the Red Bulls. Although we will obviously keep in mind that Red Bulls 2 is still playing, and we definitely encourage you to get on out to MSU Soccer Park to watch the team play.
It was bumping out there on Sunday.
Yeah.
There were bumps. They're 3 wins away from an MLS Next Pro Cup.
A new banner at MSU.
It rolls off the tongue. Seth Hewling, longtime fan of the show, says, Seeing Red, the whimper with which the 25 season came to an end was emblematic of the year New York had, and anyone who watched the team week in, week out should be disappointed with the product on the field. That being said, I want to credit Red Bull for one thing they actually did right. For years, we've cried out for a forward and a number 10. And in 25, I think it's fair to say that those are the only two positions where the players met or succeeded expectation. Forsberg and Choupo-Moting could give any player in Metro history a run for their money in the all-time 11. Actually, I don't know if Choupo starts over Henri, JPA, or Bradley, but he definitely makes the bench. Anyway, credit where credit's due. Red Bull got those two signings right, huzzah. But as long as we're calling balls and strikes, they definitely struck out on the rest of the team. They bet big on Morgan, Hack, and a bunch of kids, and it just didn't work out. Red Bull needs to go back to the drawing board, but will they? Likely no. They'll probably just go back to the scouting the Polish second division or whatever it is they do in the offseason. Unlike Red Bull, seeing red always delivers. Thanks again for another brilliant season. That's Seth. Rumors abound about where, what's going to happen with the roster. They could go younger. They have their $80 million investment in the training complex getting ready to open, and maybe they take their foot off the gas and just turn to an even younger team with these two old heads. What do you guys think?
I'll go first. I was talking to someone after the game on Sunday, and actually one of the head scouts actually is not with the team anymore. So he's been the big proponent with some of these European signings. So I think a new body that they've promoted from within has more experience with the North American game. So we'll probably see maybe some trades within the league, some more, pro scouting from within the league. So I just wanted to implement that in there. But yeah, I think, he brought it up right. And I think we've talked about this before where for so many years, right, the team was so good in the middle, right? They just didn't have those DP pieces. So now when they have the DP pieces, they're missing the meat on the roster. So it's going to be a tough offseason. And if Jochen Schneider, Jurgen Klopp and all the guys in the front office look at themselves in the mirror, if they want a winning team, if they want winning football on the pitch, they have to make some tough decisions and, maybe buy out a few guys like a Hack or a Wiki to kind of free up this money to bring in better pieces, because they have the young pieces, like the supplemental rosters. I think one of the better ones in the league. Like they have a lot of good quality players that are, still developing and that are, ready to make impact off the bench. It's just about that middle of the roster, man. When you have, Alexander Hack making $1 million, Wiki Carmona making $500,000, there's a lot of money to get off the books there. And if they are able to get off the books there, get that money off the books, there's a lot of potential with bringing guys in from abroad and filling those spots. So if they're able to, bring in maybe a DP winger and then another U22 winger, if they're able to get off of Dennis Yangar, I mean, you add those two pieces with Emil Forsberg and Choupo-Moting, I mean, that offense could be really, really saucy next year.
Mike?
This was year 2 of the let's spend money era. And we saw diminishing results. We, like Dan said, we need to work on the middle of the roster. The depth of this roster is just not there. I want Red Bull just start I just want Red Bull maybe look at MLS free agents almost. We need to find players who are able to come into this league. We don't need to find kids who are going to take 5 weeks to get their visa approved. Taken away for some youth national team tournament that no one knows anything about. We need more depth, and I don't think we don't need to make a big splash. We don't need a certain German who's just playing will he, won't he. And I hope that whoever is making the decisions, whether it be Global or Jochen, we just find guys. Essentially, we picked up Raheem Edwards. How much other MLS talent there's got to be more MLS talent than just Raheem Edwards we can pick up.
I will say, looking at last year, right? They brought in the new you can spend real money on transfers in league. And that was definitely a venue that Red Bull should have explored last year. Like, look at a guy like Evander. Evander was wanting to get out of Portland. You're telling me you wouldn't spend real money on a guy like Evander? Look what he did this year. He's in MLS. He's gonna be in MLS, best 11. Like, he is that type of player in midfield. So I think, look, if you can find a guy that's posting superstar numbers, that's disgruntled at his own team and league, go look if he's available and spend the money there. No, find proven guys that are really good players in this league. Bring them in. I think that's just an avenue that Red Bull's kind of ignored recently. So
Yep. All
that's
right.
something to look at.
Last of 2 emails from Tim. Guys, first time, long time. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks for a great season of shows, even though the season on the field stunk. 2 quick points. First of all, I'm very worried about the third DP situation. It seems like they're still on the Timo wagon, which just looks like a disaster waiting to happen. I don't want an unmotivated player who doesn't really want to be here, especially someone who hasn't produced in years, and especially someone at a position where I'm already happy with Chupo and Hall. They need to use that DP slot somewhere else. Second, I'm hearing a lot of talk around the fan base about how we would have made it in the West. But I really don't think that's true. We got the majority of our points off the large group of Eastern Conference bottom feeders, and our crossover games are also pretty easy. Playing in the West would not have gotten fewer points and came in 10th or 11th anyway. The season was not bad luck. The team simply wasn't any good. Thanks, Tim. Tim, we've talked all season. Hey, it's Mike Batista. We've talked all season about how this team was not terrible. They just weren't very good. They were just mediocre. There are far worse teams in MLS. DC United picked up the wooden spoon. Montreal was absolute garbage. And there are teams at the bottom of the Western Conference that barely could perform in USL. So I just want to put for this team, they didn't make the playoffs, and therefore it's a bad year. There are different years where this team would have made the playoffs with the exact number of points that they got. It just didn't happen to be this year. So I think it's just, I'm not going to argue it was a good year. It wasn't, but it just wasn't the worst year. We've been there for that. Mike, why don't you start here?
Actually, Dan Rebane was talking so much that my bad laptop battery was dying. Could you just have him start real quick?
Basically, he doesn't want Timo to come because he doesn't want a player that doesn't want to be here. They need a DP in a different position on the field other than forward. And then this year wasn't all that bad.
I mean, yeah, I think I've heard people say that. Would you want to be the Chicago Fire before making the playoffs this season? Like, you want to not make the playoffs for like
6 years.
For like 6 years, and there's some teams who just,
8 years.
Yeah, it's been a while. I can understand that, like, we were having a first world problem because we didn't make the playoffs. But it's also the fact that when you have a head coach who says, I really wasn't thinking about the fact that the playoff streak was about to be broken. It's like, is that really the message you want to say right now when your fan base is conditioned to at least make the playoffs? You're like, oh, I wasn't really thinking about that. Like, we have so many issues right now, and to know that's what happened, yeah, this is like a catastrophic thing for the Red Bulls. But for any other MLS team, it's just another Tuesday.
Yep. Dan?
Yeah, relatively, like you said, Mark, this wasn't a bad year. It's just they didn't make the playoffs, and they just weren't good, right? They were very mid, as Michael would like to say with his students at school, right? They're mid.
No cap.
Yeah. And it is what it is. And I think, the past couple of years have kind of, they've put Band-Aids over those rosters. Like, them making MLS Cup final, like, they just weren't supposed to be there. They just got hot at the right time. But that roster was bad, right? So it's like they just got to MLS. I personally, right? From my point of view, right? And then you take that roster, right? You subtract Andres Reyes, a quality center back, but, whatever it was in the final, right? And then you kind of really only add one impact player like Choupo-Moting, right? This team needed a lot more impact players, and they only brought in Chupo. And Chupo performed very well, like we said.
Very well.
But, like, though him and Emil Forsberg can't be the only two guys.
Yep.
Nope.
So I kind of agree with him that they shouldn't be going after Timo Werner because I just think he's washed. And I think his motivation is outside of football. I just don't think he wants to play anymore, or he's just not good, right? And I think they do need another DP at the wing spot. Maybe not a striker, but they need a winger that that's a superstar level player in MLS. Like where you look at him and you're like, wow, he is one of the better players in MLS, right? They need that type of player on the wing. So there's a lot of work here, and it's going to be tough for this front office to pull it off. But there's a lot of guys that shouldn't be here, should see their contracts decline, should be sold. And then, it's for them to work on and bring, newer players in and kind of build out this roster from the ground up again.
Guys, it's been a little bit of a marathon tonight. Thank you so much. Appreciate you all season long. Again, we will be back when it's time to talk a little bit more about changes going on with the team, but we're going to step back for a little bit and just focus on some RB2s. And again, it's most likely Sunday. I can't believe it's Tuesday night. They haven't announced who they're playing. They haven't announced when they're playing, but we encourage you to go and support Red Bull 2 because it's the playoff soccer you can see. And,
2025 Red Bull playoff soccer. It's more likely than you think.
Catch it. Thanks to Mike. Thanks to Dan for all season. Gustavo, thanks to you as well.
Happy birthday to him as well.
Happy birthday to Gustavo. We'll be back soon, everyone. Be well. Let's go Red Bulls. 2026. A new streak starts. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.